Hello, welcome to You Haven't Blanked That. I'm Forrest.
And this is Jimmy. Hey, Forrest.
Hey, Jimmy.
So, you recently finished the Dark Tower series, right?
Finally.
Finally.
After 15 years. It took me 15 years to read all those books.
Okay, fantastic. You did the main 8, right? Or
I did them all in order. Well, in chronological book order.
Okay.
So, I did Dark... I'll tell you how it took me to read everything. I read the first Dark Tower book before I went to New York.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That was how long ago.
That was a while ago.
So before I went to New York, it was a slow day, and I listened to it at work, and I got through I got through the Dark Tower book.
Okay. The Gunslinger.
Gunslinger,
Yeah.
the first one. Sorry,
Okay.
yeah. Gunslinger.
So when I tell people to read these books, because I love them, this is like my 4th go-through of these.
Four fucking times?
Yeah. So, but I usually tell people...
And you started them you started them after I got back from New York.
Yeah.
You didn't read them for the first time until like 2010.
Because
right?
I was hooked. I needed to...
Well, you for a long time were very anti-Stephen King.
I was, and that until this book. And then after... Because of this, I was like more intrigued with his other stories because they kept tying into the Dark Tower. So I'm like, oh, this is fantastic.
Well, we also had friends that were like, oh, he has to describe everything forever. I'm like, yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does have to describe everything forever.
Yeah. But like, what I tell people how to read these stories is start with book 2, The Drawing of the Three. Then, if you feel inclined, read The Dark Tower or the Gunslinger.
Really?
And then do book 3, which
I like Gunslinger a lot.
I do too, but a lot of people get kind of weirded out because the story is very bleak. You know what I mean? Because
but fucking throw a rock, and how many fucking Stephen King stories are fucking bleak?
Yeah.
Throw a rock.
Yeah. So, but I usually tell people start with 2, read that because it gives you the recap of the first one. Read it, fantastic. You're already hooked in with these characters. Go back to see Jake and Roland for the first time, then continue the story. But I usually tell people skip win through the keyhole to the very end because I always like it as like a very like we finished the main story. Here's a moment of the past when everybody was happy together. You know what I mean? Okay. So I feel like it's very nice, like nicely done that way.
Have you ever gone back and read them chronologically? So you would go like 4, went through the key. You go 4, went through the keyhole, and then Gunslinger. No, it would be. How would you do it? It would be keyhole. 4. It would be keyhole, and then.
No. Oh no! Would it?
Wouldn't it be? Because I mean, you can't. You'd have to go through and chop up the first book because the first book goes back in time.
Yeah.
So in theory, you'd have to. And I wonder if the comics. I have all those comics. I wonder if the comics do that. Now that I think about it.
Yeah.
I wonder if they do that.
I have some of the comics. I just haven't opened it because they're sealed.
I've got like my comic store had them on sale for like half off, and I bought a stack of those trades.
Oh, nice.
I paid and hardcover, mostly hardcover of those trades.
Ooh, I haven't because I have them, but they're sealed.
But I wonder. I haven't gone to read them yet because I was waiting and I haven't had time to go back into them. But I wonder if you read them in order, if they do them in that order.
Yeah.
If they do them in the as a kid up through Gunslinger, because you'd have to cut up like half that book.
You would have to cut half the Gunslinger, then you have to go to Wizard and Glass, and then you would have to cut up that book because only the
Wizard and Glass part.
Yeah, just.
But you wouldn't even go Wizard and Glass because you'd have to cut up that part of the book, the first book, and then you'd have to go to Win Through the Keyhole, wouldn't you? Isn't Win Through the Keyhole before Wizard and Glass?
It's after.
Is it?
No, it is before. It is before.
It is because it
that's
happened
in the city of Lud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then go to Wizards and Glass, and then go. Yeah, you would have to chop up that story so bad.
I wonder why they haven't done that like have you seen there's a cut of The Godfather where they do it all chronologically?
No, I didn't know that.
You can find it somewhere, but they take all the Vito stuff with De Niro, and that's all at the beginning. So it's from I think it's from him getting to.
Have you seen it? Does it flow decently, or does it?
I haven't seen it because it's really hard to find.
Because I feel like it would be kind of choppy.
It's like a 10-hour watch though.
Oh shit!
It's not a. Yeah. It's not a. It literally cuts all three of the movies together.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's a 10-hour watch, and I think they add some things too to make it work and flow. I think there's stuff that he had, or maybe I think he cuts and puts things in. Yeah. It's his fucking movie. Let him do it. But I think it's called the Whole Saga or something like that. But it's literally all that stuff in order.
That's cool.
So I think it's him as a kid, and then him going back to New York.
Yeah.
Leaving on the boat because he's almost gonna get killed out there, and then he goes back. He makes his name out there in New York, and then he goes back out to Italy and kills the guy who killed his family.
Yeah.
And
I know there's because that's based on the book. My sister read the book.
You ever read the book?
No, but is the book in order, or is it just like the film where it jumps?
Well, here's the thing with the book. There's a whole part about a doctor. There's a whole weird part that it goes on, and it's about a doctor, and there's part of it's about a doctor for a bit at the beginning.
Uh-huh.
And it's a doctor, because there's this whole subplot about a doctor.
Okay.
I don't know who the doctor is for because you're like, oh, that's an interesting choice. But I have the book somewhere. Let me find it.
Yeah, I'll give it a read.
I forgot to read those other books recently.
But yeah, with the Dark Tower, the Gunslinger, I like it because it starts off with that famous quote, Roland fleeing across the Man in Black fled across the desert. Gunslinger followed, but it's a very I don't know. It's just the first time reading it. It's a very well, what's going on? You know what I mean? What is this story? And then as you go through the first farm where everything's just bleak and everything's dying, and that guy, he doesn't know whether he's a trick from the Man in Black or if he's a real person.
Yeah.
And then he's telling him hey, if you're gonna take a piss on the crops, whatever.
Yeah, water.
Yeah, and then it's one of those where it's what is this world? And then not until you meet, oh fuck, I'm blanking on the kid's name. Jake. When Jake comes in, it's it's such a weird change because Jake is very much doesn't want to be alone, doesn't remember, is panicking and is scared. And for whatever reason, the Gunslinger is just drawn to take care of him and carry him through.
Yeah.
And it was such a weird okay, cool.
Well,
because then you get the story of Tull, and then you're how he murdered everyone in that town.
Well, they were all coming after him though.
Yeah, but it was dude, you have zero remorse for whatever you've done. I mean, because his main desire is the tower, and you're okay, cool. But what I love about the end, or towards the end, once he sacrificed Jake's to the slow mutants.
Yeah.
And drops them. Jake tells him hey, there are other worlds than these. It's fine. Which is a wild statement to just drop out there, especially for a kid that doesn't know his memory, but he knows he knows that for a fact. It was weird, but when he catches up with the Man in Black at the end of at the other side of the mountain,
yeah,
and they have their palaver, and then 10 years, 12 years pass by while they're talking, and they're just seeing everything, and they're describing the universe and how everything's in a blade of grass and all this thing,
yeah.
And at the very end, the tower is just beckoning him to show up. It's just that was a fucking trip. Because I've never read anything so slow burning, wild out there story before. I'm this is crazy. So I was then drawn into the second book after that.
Yeah, and I think that's what everybody the people that we knew who were they weren't used to a slow burn.
Yeah.
I don't know and it is a slow burn. A lot of the stuff is a slow burn. Well, I read a book about how he does horror. I mean, there's not much horror in these. I mean, there are elements of horror, but he does this thing where he goes through 4 different states, and when you're writing horror, you gotta kind of figure out what you want to be. It was uneasy. Fuck, I wrote it down somewhere a long time ago. it was like uneasy. It goes from like uneasiness, like terrifying.
Yeah.
And terrifying, you only want to be in for a little bit. It's the most effective, but you only want to be in it for a little bit. You can't be terrified the whole time, or it lessens the other ones.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so he tries to make things as uneasy as he can, for as long as he can.
Yeah. And
sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, he's not a perfect author, but he's damn near close.
Yeah.
Everybody likes that Billy. Is it Billy Summers? It's about I think it's called Billy Summers. Is like one of the last books he made in like the last 5 years.
Okay.
And I couldn't get into it.
Yeah.
His crime books, depending on which one you get to, are good. Like, ever read any of his mysteries or his crime books?
Yeah.
Like, did you ever read Mr. Mercedes?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you read the other books in that series?
No.
Because there's 2 more books in that series, and I haven't been able to get through them because I get to the same spot in the second one every time.
Yeah.
And I want to know how it ends because there's more shit that happens. Like, all that shit that happens in the first one, like, that guy comes back.
Okay.
Brady comes back.
Okay.
The guy he gets hit with like a fucking sock full of quarters or something, doesn't he? Yeah. Or like a bricks or fucking rocks or whatever the fuck it was that knocks him out. And so, and Holly Gibney comes back too. I just read Holly after I said I was gonna read more fucking Stephen King this year.
Yeah.
I want to read another fucking Stephen King book. But like you get to Joyland. Like Joyland is Joyland and Later are like hard case crime noir novels.
Okay.
And they're fucking fantastic. Joyland is... I'm surprised no one's picked up Joyland because it would be such an easy... Either of these books are easy to adapt into movies. Later has a bit of a Shining vibe to it because this kid can see the ghosts of people and he can talk to them and tell them and find out where... He was able to figure out like how they were killed, and this police detective was using that on for a bit.
Okay.
But there's a little more to it than just that. But it's really fun. Like, Later would be such an easy one. And it's good. So fucking good. So I don't know, it's... I don't know, and maybe the whole time I was always trying to just, like, instinctually adapting shit. Maybe that's why I liked that he was that descriptive.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, as you come into your thing, maybe you always had that thing, you just didn't know how to listen to that voice.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm kind of figuring out with a lot of stuff right now, that I just wasn't listening the right way. But,
okay.
Yeah, just... I like this first book. I mean, it's simple. It's a simple fucking story.
Yeah.
If they made a movie, when they finally make the movies of these, they need to combine 1 and 2.
Yeah. I mean, you could shorten up the first one pretty easy. Just...
And like Tull, you would just... I don't think you would show all of Tull. I think you would just flashback. It would just flashback, but it would be like brief flashbacks. You wouldn't need that whole story.
Yeah.
You can do...
you would need some of it.
That, or you have it as... or you put it as your intro to the movie.
Yeah. Because, like...
Like, Tull should be the intro to the movie. That's how they should do it. Because you can't...
punch, and then, like... Then
in the movie...
Draw it out, yeah.
And what you do is this.
Because, like...
You can't just... In a book, you can just start them off in a desert. You can put that line... Roland... The black... Man in Black went through the desert and Roland followed.
Yeah.
You can do that in a book. You can't do that in a movie. So what you do is you have him in Tull, right?
Right.
And he's defending himself, and then he gets like one good shot, and then it cuts. Then it cuts to him in waking up in the desert as he's like trying to chase, as he's like going through.
Yeah. But like I feel like the pace would be weird because then you see how destructive he could be, and then he's not that destructive throughout the whole thing.
That's fine.
You know what I mean?
But it does that whole... It's going to go back and forth. You're going to do
that. The first book...
Well, then okay, fine then. That's, if you don't know it, then it subverts then it subverts everything.
Yeah.
It's a good contrast at the beginning because you're going to be expecting that.
Yeah.
He's going to go across that guy who gives him the beans and franks, or whatever the fuck his name... the beans and musical fruit.
Yeah.
And you're going to expect him to fucking shoot that guy, and he doesn't.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I see that.
Anytime he comes across somebody in the desert, you're going to expect that angry Or you don't even show what led up to Tull. You go midway through Tull when he's like.
Yeah. Okay.
When he's, in the words of Danny DeVito, just blasting everybody.
Because like the first book is interesting because like you see all these like weird concepts like come in, like it's like because there's no reference of time, so you have no idea when this is taking place. Everyone assumes like it's a western, so you're like okay, it's 1800s or whatever. But then like they, especially in Tull, they start playing Hey Jude on the piano, and you're like okay, well this is weird because now you have like these weird like outside elements.
Or the piano.
The piano. And then, so you have all these outside elements affecting like this current like world.
I like that.
I like that vagueness to it because like you have.
Well, but I mean, you don't know that in the. And I'm interested to see how Mike Flanagan's gonna handle all this
because like
he's doing that, right?
Yeah, I do that.
But like I like it, and I think it'll move over fine.
Yeah.
I think everything that they're worried about. Given how much shows we've had with all this weird ass world building in it. I mean, I think as we've gotten more world building shit, I think it's gonna be. I think they're worried about it more than they need to.
I think so too. I don't need everything connected to everything else.
Oh no! I'm not talking about making it connected. I'm talking about how vast and how weird the world. How big world is in general.
Yeah,
like because, I mean, like, yeah, he's gonna have that Hey Jude on the piano.
Yeah. And
it's gonna look like it's Tull's gonna look like your typical fucking Western town. You know what I mean? Like, do it, just do it. Don't even like just do it like he did. Don't even fucking explain it. Just do it.
Yeah, because like the tones in book 2, the drawing of the 3, which I love. I love it so much because my favorite. Who's your favorite character out of the entire series?
Oof. You like Jake?
I don't.
You like Jake? I think you like Jake.
Nope. He's okay. I like him, but no.
Who's your favorite character then?
Eddie Dean.
Oh, that's what I meant. Eddie. I meant Eddie, not Jake.
Eddie Dean's my favorite. Yeah.
I meant Eddie. I like Roland. I think that's a good character. I like his past and him wrestling and everything he's wrestling with as you go on with the story and him, and I like his mental journey.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's a good way, and there's a lot of filling in the blanks you have to do.
Yeah.
But it's very paint, and it is very paint by numbers. But for as vast and as big as those books get as they go on, and how big that world is, like it has to be paint by numbers on a lot of that.
My top 2 characters is Eddie Dean's always the top. He's my all-time favorite. Second is Odette Walker. I love her, motherfucker, blue-eyed honky. Like I love it. It's so, but like even having a character with multiple personalities, like it works so well. And then that's where I thought.
Well, that payoff. Well, we'll get there later, but that payoff later in the series.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then, but like in the book Drawing of the 3, you get the lobstrosities chopping down like Roland's.
That's that too?
Yeah, Drawing of the 3.
Oh, I keep thinking. Yeah, I always confuse those.
So when he chops off his fingers. And then you're like, oh, this is crazy. And then, like, the doors appear in between. And then, like, Roland goes through the door and becomes Eddie Dean. And, like, sees what's going on. Because, like, in book 1, you get the tarot cards that the Man in Black draws out. And it's, like, the Woman of Shadows. And then the, what was it?
Was it the chemist?
No, it was something else. It was, like, the prisoner. The prisoner. Because he had the gorilla on the back.
That's right.
On the card itself, and then death, but not for you, gunslinger. Like it was like, but when you see the drawing of the 3, like your whole mind is like, okay, there's 3 people he's got to pull, and the story is just crazy with like Eddie Dean bringing in the drugs from wherever back to New York, and then like his brother dying and his whole addiction of what's going on, and then you got Roland trying to grab him and pull him away because he needs him and he needs to give up that life and that drug, and it's hard for him, and like you see it all going through, and then you see him both going back to get not Odette Walker but Susanna, and it's like one of those where it's like the wheelchair, the Man in Black's around kind of just doing shit, and you're like, what the fuck's going on here? And then like the fact that they end up like pulling her back, you're like, okay, this is great, but then you realize like the third, like you think Odette Walker, Susan, and Eddie Dean are the three, but then like it's like, oh no, we need fucking Jake. And then like that blew me away. It's like the kid you sacrificed in the first book, you fucking bring him back, and then his mind splitting in half because he's remembering two timelines, both Roland and Jake. Like that was crazy. They're like then tying and fusing the two together by making the key to tie them together. Like it's just insane. The story is just, it's so wild. Like I don't understand like how he came up with all these different like concepts to be where he's at, and like at the end of Drawing to the Three, you're like, well, fuck, that was a story. You know what I mean? But like at the same time, it's like, what was the purpose of that? But the purpose is like, we need our characters. This is how we got our characters. Let's move on to book 3. And you're like, what? It's just insane. Like it's just like that wildness, that the imaginative of like different worlds and bringing people in. Like it's just so over the top that's the book where I was like, this is a fucking story, and it's gonna be huge. That's why I tell people, read 2 first, Drawing to the 3, go back to 1 so you kind of get like where we're at, and then go from there, because 2 will hook you in immediately to continue the story.
But that I don't know,
because it gives you the recap in the beginning of the books.
They give you a recap at the beginning of every book. I know. Well, now they do. I don't think they did before.
Yeah. But like
I think that's
something they added for all the new
years.
productions, but yeah, like that story is amazing. Like it's just like fucking Eddie seeing his dead brother's head, and then him going crazy and that giant shootout, and then like he just grabs Roland's gun, and then that's where like the fire in him comes in, and then like that's where it's like. And even Roland's telling him, like, you don't aim with your eyes, or aim with your mind. Shoot with your heart. And don't shoot with your fingers. Shoot with your hand or whatever. But like that's where like Eddie has his first taste of being a gunslinger, and Roland sees it and knows it, and you're like, fuck yeah, like okay, cool. This is my man. I'm building my Ka-tet. I need him like this.
Yeah.
Not with the drugs, not with anything, because he's not thinking, he's just acting, and it's so good. And then it's just like it's a crazy story too, because you get Susanna like fucking in a wheelchair, and they bring her into fucking Midworld with no wheelchair, and you're like, well, how the fuck are you gonna have this as a character? Like, I mean, like she's fucking wild and she's unpredictable because like she'll switch between personalities so quickly, but at the same time, it's like. Now you're carrying her through the story. I'm like, and like I like how it was never like a burden. Like everybody's like, oh, like whatever, like let's get rid of her, let's drop her off. Like she is in the story, and she is a big part of the story. And it's like it's one of those where it's like, I love the fact that you bring in somebody with a disability, and then you take away their only ease, which is her chair.
It's a chair,
And it's like, fuck, okay, cool. Like now it's like. You're purposely carrying her. You're bringing her with you. You don't even acknowledge it as a disability. You just know it's like, oh yeah, we're carrying you. I mean, like it's just a very like. There's no questions about it. Like it's, and she is fantastic. And then, is it book 2, Drawing to 3, where they walk into the ruins, right? And then like that spirit's there, and then you realize that spirit previously, in book 1, took Roland's semen. And then in this one, it takes Detta, it takes Detta.
2 or 3? I feel like it's later on.
No, you're right. It's 3. So yeah, going to 3, which is the Wastelands. That's where you find out about the different guardians of the beams, because you find out now that everything has a beam, and everything. If you look for it, you can see the beam in all worlds leading towards the Dark Tower. Mm-hmm. And then then you get what's the bear's name? Shardak.
Yeah.
And then Roland then talks about, oh yeah, there are other animal totems, and then this is where it ties into it, which is you get the tortoise of immense girth, and then so he's part of the beam, he's part of the guardians of the beam, and then also you have they reference the lion, and of course the lion is like the most like famous being and known in all worlds, which is Aslan from Narnia, and it's just like it's these great little homages to different things, and then you realize that this bear is a robot, it is a robot, right? And you that's when you start planting the seeds of the different corporations that are like in the world governing for destruction. And it's just, but then Susan, as Odette Walker, goes into the circle. She gets raped by this demon, and then she gets pregnant by Roland's son. Mm-hmm. And then like that's like it was just like, where the fuck are you going? Like the story is so just.
Well, but they don't know that right away.
They don't know that right away.
You don't know that until the end of the fucking book.
But then like you get to then like they're following the beam and they end up going to the City of Blood. But that's where Went Through the Keyhole would take place is right before they go into the City of Blood. And then like the Wasteland is like the cradle of life. This is where I became a huge because I always liked ZZ Top, but this is where I became a bigger fan of ZZ Top.
Because there's references in there. Huh?
Yeah, because like they hear the drums of Blood, and then you find out it's just Velcro Fly from ZZ Top just playing on like, all the speakers. And then you realize like when they get into the city, it's just there's mutants in there. There's all these like broken people still trying to survive, but they're hiding from the AI that's there. And then they get to the cradle, which is like this like train depot area, and they end up meeting like Blaine, which is like the AI train, which is like pissed off at everybody. And then like out of all the ways to like get out of a story, to get out of like a AI function, you use fucking dead baby jokes. You know what I mean? To like break the system, and then like.
Well, there was a whole thing like he wrote an essay about that, and that's where that came from.
Okay.
There's a whole essay he wrote about dead baby jokes.
But.
Or he mentions them at least. Maybe he doesn't.
Yeah, but
I read it a long time ago.
But like it's the story is just it's. You tell that like you destroy Blaine, you break up his like unit, but then like the train itself, as it's this ludicrous like dead baby joke, fucking way out. The train is traveling through worlds, through dimensions, through different spaces of time for different things.
Let me throw some at your way. Do you think any of this? Okay, because it gets
wild. It
starts getting into David Lynch territory. Do you think any of this is David Lynch influenced at all?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I would say it would have to be. I don't know whether Stephen King knows it did subconsciously or not. But yeah, 100%.
Well, if you do, if you've read,
because you pass through Thunderclap, you pass through all these like.
I'm trying to think. When does? I know it's like 70 or early 80s, late 70s for like very late 70s for Gunslinger, right?
Yeah.
Like early 80s maybe 1980. And then Drawing of the Three, because he talks about it in the books, at the end of the books, is like 85, right?
I think so.
So then when does Wastelands come out? Like the 90s. Like I think
it was in the 90s because like that's the number.
So then at that point at that point when it can start going crazy and out of fucking control. I mean, we've been through Twin Peaks.
That's true.
And he's also done. If you've ever read, did you read Needful Things?
Needful Things, no.
It's kind of his Twin Peaks, and the devil comes to town.
Okay.
And the devil, it's that one where the devil, they do a Rick and Morty episode of it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Where the store that only things that you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like the theme of the story is like it's just like it's a Arthurian story.
No, it is.
So, but it's an Arthurian story with a Wizard of Oz flair, with a lot of pop culture, with a lot of music. But it's also like I feel like it's the tale of the Green Knight.
Having seen the Green Knight movie, yeah,
because it's
Roland being the Green Knight.
Roland's the Green Knight, the last of the Arthurian. Because everyone else is like gone and forgotten. They're too old to do their adventures. You get Roland, who gets sent on this quest for the Dark Tower. He then travels through tragedy, all to end in his demise. You know what I mean? But at like the end of the film, like the Green Knight, it's just a bop in the head and we're done. But you don't know whether he's dead or not. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, okay. But just like with the story, everything's a wheel. So it's just like, you know what I mean? But I feel like this is just more of a fucking wild story that's balls to the wall out there nowhere. Everything's just like insane, but the excitement is so great. But the story is just pushing you towards the very end. Even when you're
like, what the fuck are we going down this alley for?
You get a reminder that the tower is there and it's calling you, and you're like, fuck, what is in that tower? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the dreams and the visions, and then like later on in the books, you get the rose, and then it's just fucking dude, like it gets me excited every time I see it, because everything I see, there's always just references in the natural world that like I connect to the Dark Tower, and everything is the Dark Tower. It's fantastic.
And then we get to book 4, which I'm sorry, I know that's like your favorite. It's not my favorite.
I love it. This
Wizard and the Glass was not
Wizard
my
and Glass is like, oh my god, dude.
And I know it tells it's like the crux of the story.
It's the crux of the story. It's such a heartbreaking story where like Roland as a young teenager on his first like kind of like big mission to like go and spy, ends up falling in love with this girl, and he knows he shouldn't, and then there's this whole like subplot.
It's kind of a Jedi where you can't like fall in love with somebody.
Yeah, but like there's also this like subplot about this like these coffin men that come in like to bully this town and have it do its thing, but at the same time there's this thing in the canyon called the Thinny, and it's this thin part of the world where everything connects. So whatever is on the other side will come through at any given time. So that's where you get that Cronenberg like beast that exists in the blackness could come in through there. Like everything can come in at any given time. And then like so you have all that going on. You have this tragic story about this poor girl that's destined to marry this older man because it has to happen.
Is it kind of Princess Bride-ish then?
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, no, 100% it is. Oh, dude, I never thought of it that way.
I mean,
yeah, because
the book was made way before the movie was, and by that point, by the time Wizard and Glass comes out, the movie's been out.
Yeah, and then like what's great about that is that you see Roland with his Ka-tet, which is like his group that are so tight they could read each other's minds and know each other's feelings, and they're just so in tune with each other. But because he falls in love with that girl, like it's that starts to break, and then you see little moments in the story where like Cuthbert and like Alan are just kind of like fighting to keep Roland back in line, and like, hey, we're a team, but Roland's already lost by then, and that loss is what causes him, which is like that's like the seed that takes him to the Dark Tower, because that need for his self fulfillment, not the team fulfillment, which has caused his whole tragic story to take place, because it's all about his needs and his wants, because he feels like he doesn't have them, but he does, and he's really ignorant to them, and he's really just blind to his own like self-destruction, and he just doesn't care, and it's just like, but that's where you see it at its like birth, I mean, like it's there, and then like you see like the falling of his Ka-tet, the everything falls to ruin after that. They lost the fucking horn of El. They everything's just gone at that point, and this was the moment in his fucking story, his constant story, where this is where he messed up, and we're watching it happen, and he doesn't even see it. Even when he's telling the story to his new Ka-tet, they don't see it, and they're too new to realize, oh, this is where you fucked up, and then because they're so new, this is what's going on. He doesn't have it. This is the moment in the story after he tells everybody, and they like go to like to Lud or go to wherever to follow the beam, that Roland could have given up the tower. He could have given it up then and walked away and just kind of just lived a life somewhere else. But the memory of the tower, the memory through the pink glass calling him to it, he's fucked. He's fucked.
Yeah.
And it's just such a great story to see a young Roland without his like maturity to him.
Yeah.
And he's still a gunslinger. He's still very deadly, and he's just very much. He's just a child. You know what I mean? He's just a kid, and he's doing all this stuff, and he can't fall in love. He can't do this, and he can't interfere with the village's way of like being things, and but he does, and like it's just, and then you get that witch that's doing this whole diabolical thing, and then you get this destruction, old post-apocalyptic city with the generator that they're trying to like siphon to get all this stuff. Like it's just like the story. I love it because it's like, this is how I see Roland, and to see him outside of this moment is to see a broken man, and like it, and that's why I love it.
Yeah, I don't know why it just didn't hit for. I've heard, I feel this one is I feel is more split than the later ones. Because like I remember one of the books he talks later in the series, he talks about how it ends in a place and you're not gonna like where it ends.
Yeah.
And then I didn't like how I just didn't care for this one over that one. I forgot it was maybe like 5 or 6.
Book 4, still my favorite.
Yeah, it was. I don't know.
I
got those comics. I wonder if it goes over that in the comics. Maybe
it does a little bit. I haven't read all of them. I've
got a bunch of them. I got them for cheap.
And then, but yeah, like you get that vision for Roland for the Dark Tower, then kind of cementing his fate at that point. But then also book 5 is
call it. So you go call it. You don't when you read them. You don't read them chronologically. You read them in release order.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Wolves of the Kala. Well, because the thing is, like, after you're finishing the story, then it's one of those where it's like you get one happy book where they're all together. You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, it's just that night. It's just that night, and then that one story.
Yeah, but then it's all weird because it's him telling the story again. It's rather than just him telling more stories in the middle of the fucking.
Yeah, but I do like the only thing I have to say about Wince Through the Keyhole is that I do like that. What do they call it when the grouping of animals? What's that word?
Oh fuck.
Or whatever. But they have the grouping of dragons, which they call it a bonfire. I'm like, oh, that's pretty dope.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Wolves of the Kala. That story, just when you think you understand where the story is going, it just goes a completely different direction with like, you got these doom bots that are just riding like the town.
Well, that was the thing. I remember reading this and going, like, I get like 50 pages in and I'm all, is this just fucking Seven Samurai? And I was just like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know, it's cool, but it's also kind of weird at the same time, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I mean, that's this whole thing, is that it's cool and weird, and I mean, yeah, he's just mashing everything up in general anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, everything, this is just one big fucking Richard Dreyfuss mashed potato tower of fucking...
Everything?
Of everything.
Yeah.
So, I was just like, oh, like, is this that Zack Snyder movie?
Yeah. Well, because Wolves of the Kala is interesting because it brings up like the whole beam breakers, and then you're realizing that like not just this world but all worlds are like in fact like in danger of like collapsing, because like with the tower not standing, which is basically like Ka's umbilical cord to the world, I guess, is like being all severed through all these like things, but you have these like. That's where you get like this whole like corporation involvement with this whole like there's a bigger evil of chaos that's running the world.
And it's just like, oh, okay, like.
But this is where Shimi comes into play too, where like it's like one of those where it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like we saw him at in Wizard and Glass. Now he's like one of the beam breakers. I mean, then you see like where it's just all this is going on at the same time. You have, what's her face, Susanna, pregnant, ready to give birth. But, like, as for Wolves of the Kala, I just see it, like, as, this is another book I need to get through to the next book. But, like, I don't, like, this book doesn't really stick out for me as much as the rest of them. It's one of those where it's like, yeah, there's some cool parts, but not really. Like, this is the part where we now have the reference to the Charyu tree. We have now Roland doing the Kamala dance. You get Susanna now gets her discs.
Yeah.
In this book, which is great because this is the part where I think Jake's the one who notices it and tells and like is talking to Eddie, saying like they've never seen Roland be happy or act like joyful, and this is their view of seeing him that way.
So okay, and I read through 4.
Okay.
And then I didn't read any of these books for a while. and then I think when Went Through the Keyhole came out, so I read through. Okay, so I read 1 in like 2008, and then I read 2, 3, and 4, or 2 and 3.
Yep.
And then a couple years later, I went to 4.
Yeah.
And then I didn't read anything. Then I tried doing Went Through the Keyhole, and it took me a few times, so I just wasn't able to sit and get through it because it's a lot, and I just didn't have time. It was when babies were born.
Yeah.
So I didn't have as much time as I wanted to be able to focus. And sometimes, depending on the Stephen King book you're reading, sometimes you really need focus, and you just can't do it. So then this last year, I was like, all right, let's just fucking plow through them.
Yeah.
Like, plow through. I've got 3 books. Let's just plow through the last 3 of those books and do it. And then I fucking did.
Yeah.
So it I finally got through Went Through the Keyhole, but it took me some time. Yeah, I mean, this one, it was Seven Samurai, and it was a little weird for me. I mean, there's all these, and there's all these fucking detours. And you've read the books. How many times have you been through the books?
4 times.
For all of them 4? Do you
all
skip
4?
Or you skip? Okay.
I've read Went Through the Keyhole once.
And okay,
yeah,
that's the one with the skinless man thing, right? And where they go to town and they fight the skinless guy. No, I'm just thinking like there's so much of those fucking stories.
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, what was it called? It's one where it's just the only thing that sticks out of that book for me is just that they see Roland, they see Roland in a way that they haven't seen him before, but this is also the beginning of the breaking of the Ka-tet. This is where the seeds planted were like they're not in sync with him anymore. You know what I mean? And so they're still a Ka-tet, but they're not, just like with Cuthbert and like Alan, or was the other buddy, where like the breaking of like their Ka-tet was just minor, but it started to. This was Roland's breaking of the Ka-tet.
So is that kind of like an analogy of like these are your friends with your kids, but then like you have your real friends that you meet when you're in like fucking high school type of thing?
No, I take it as like these are your friends, but at the end it's like you have to let go of people that are holding you back.
Yeah.
And there's only one thing in Roland's mind, and it's the tower. And as much as like these friendships are real and true, and he loves them, they love him, it has to come to an end. So like that's how I see this one. But the next book is The Song of Susanna, and this one's a trippy one because this is where
they go through the
Mordred is born.
That's right.
And so this is where like they're having this big old thing, and it's like it's this weird like story where like Susanna's just like she disappears, and then she's like they're trying to find her. And
is it this book or the previous book where you find her talking to herself?
You find her. This is the one.
This one.
She's like the golem of her.
Yeah,
herself.
She's like swimming, and she's like and she's just like crazy ass cracker or something like that.
Yeah.
Like,
honky.
Yeah.
And then like, but it's one of those where it's like, okay, cool. Like this is where the book just is like switches into its own different like thing for a second. Like it feels out of place, but like it needs to be there. You know what I mean? Where like this is where it's like now the distrust is 100% there because Roland knows she's full of shit.
Yeah.
Eddie is aware of it, but is in love with her and blinded by his love that he's just kind of ignoring it. And Jake is just kind of wanting everybody to be cool and just kind of just forget stuff and just kind of let's just get along. But that right there is the Ka-tet already splitting. It's already splintered and it's already fractured to the point where like people are keeping secrets, people are hiding from each other, and then it's like this Ka-tet isn't gonna last, and we see it 100% happening at this time in this book. And so it's very subtle. Like it's one of those where it's like, oh yeah, these are just characters, but they have to be in sync and united, but they're not in this book, and it's kind of like a bummer because all this is leading you to believe well what's going to happen in the final book, and then it's like but Susanna, I don't really have much to say about it.
It's so weird because they're so thick, but it's all these weird detours, and like it's not that they're bad, but like we were talking the other night, like I told you the way I think they should do this, they should adapt it. They need to make an anime. That's what I think they need to do. If you want a fucking like part by part fucking direct adaptation of these books, I feel like that's the only way you're gonna get them.
Yeah. So like, be consistent.
Yeah. And then the good thing about and what they can do also, I mean, the other thing they can do if they do it as an anime or if they did it animated, I think it needs to be an anime because I think it needs to be that fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But as crazy as these books get.
Oh yeah.
It needs to have that crazy vibe to it, and I think you can get a really good one, get someone really good to do it. Yeah. But you have to have them commit to doing all of it.
Oh yeah.
Like it has to be. If you're just gonna do,
if anything,
like
just,
the first one, if
you do the first one,
you can make
fine.
a movie. You can make a movie out of the first one.
Yeah.
That's no problem. Which I thought they should have fucking done 10 years ago.
Oh right.
What they can do also, I mean, if you're going to do that, you can also pepper in the went through the keyhole throughout the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know, just pepper it in like an episode here and there.
Yeah.
Of the went through the keyhole.
Yeah, I can see that. It's just so long. I mean, that anime's got to be longer than Naruto at that point. It's got to be longer than like One Piece at that point.
How many? Okay, so
One Piece is like in the thousands of episodes. It's insane.
But you're thinking one page per. There's a couple things you're not taking into consideration. You're thinking one page per. You're thinking one book page through script per script page, right?
No.
You're not thinking that?
No, one page per.
One page of book.
No.
Per okay.
Like, because you would have to cut it, so you would have to like streamline it as much as possible.
I don't think it would be as longer than Naruto. It would be out there. Now, don't get me wrong. It would be out there, and I like I said, you can do that in this world. You'd be able to go and do that. You can even do it chronologically, or you can either do you can do one of two ways. You can do it how they treat, how the first book treats those flashbacks. You know, they put them throughout. They put him as a kid, and then they put him in Tull. Yeah. And they do all that. How that book treats those flashbacks is how you treat the went through the keyhole through the rest of the other stories. Okay. You can use that as you can use that device as the same thing. Yeah. Went through the keyhole and even maybe Wizarding Glass. So yeah, you know what I mean. Either
have those two stories be peppered through the. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean because a lot of anime I feel does that where when it's the big and longer ones, there's a lot of flashback.
Yeah, they chop it into the longer story.
Like your Dragon Ball Z, I feel like does that. Without having seen it, I can.
Naruto does that quite a bit. There's a part where they had a retcon something, so they did a whole backstory, but then they peppered in certain scenes that tied into other stuff, but to kind of I see what you mean. I don't know, like the last book in the series, The Dark Tower. Dude, like it gets to me. So reading it the first time, I remember seeing somebody reading it before I even started the book, and he was having a hard time like going through it. I was like, okay, cool. And then when I finally myself got to it, I was excited. I was like, I need to know what happens at this tower. And then when you start the book, it tells like Stephen King says like, hey, there's going to be a certain part of the story where I'm going to tell you to stop. And you should stop. I
don't think he tells you to stop as much as you hype that up for me. That's what he tells you to do.
He does it several times, and like I had people tell me too. It's like
I don't think he does that though. I think he's just saying. He said, "Here's how I read it." Okay. He goes, "If you are taking the story of that Ka-tet, Ka-tet. I'm sorry, I don't want to say that. Yeah. Ka-tet. If you're taking that story of that Ka-tet, this part right here is where the Ka-tet as a whole." Yeah. Their story ends right here. Yeah. Not that the story of the Dark Tower, which is what these books are. Yeah. The story is about the Ka-tet. Yeah. Ka-tet. Yeah. Ka-tet. Saying it like Christopher Walken and shit. But like that's the end of the like I said of the Ka-tet. Yeah. That's not the end of the Dark Tower. And I think that's what he's saying. That's what he says. He says it.
He says the book is like you should stop here 3 different times before he gets to the final. Like, hey, stop reading here.
I didn't buy that.
Because even like it's in the because like the thing is like, he gets to the point where like you finally get to see from what's the fucking vampire story. Jerusalem.
Oh, we didn't even go back to that. We skipped over Father Callahan.
Father Callahan, who was in Wolves of the Kala.
So, he's Wolves of the Kala. Yeah, and it goes into what happens afterwards and how you can find out the vampires, the type 3 vampires, which was a whole weird thing that were so then all the ones in Salem's Lot were type 3s then, right? Yeah, that's how you can tell. Yeah. So. You're going to do your thing. I'll just cut it.
So, but yeah, so he has the Wolves of the Call, and then, so he's in the Wolves of the Call that was introduced. But this is the one where like he goes to 9/11, and so
there's a lot of 9/11 in some Stephen King's because he does 9/11. Did you read
9/11?
No, not 9/11. Did you read the Shining sequel?
Oh yeah, Dr. Sleep.
Dr. Sleep, where the kid predicts 9/11. Well, he's a baby and he starts crying about 9/11 before 9/11 happened.
Where I get one of my favorite Elton John songs now is one of my favorite songs in the Dark Tower is "Somebody Saved My Life Tonight." You get Father Callahan, who's in love with like some gay boy who has AIDS, who's been attacked by a vampire, and he sees it and he tries to save his life, but when he comes back, like it's just he's gone. He's like he's dead at that point, and now he's like trying to get back to everybody else. You have the battle that's going on where I didn't even see it coming, but Eddie Dean's fucking shot.
Oh, that was insane, dude.
That was like heartbreaking, and to have Susanna like find out about it, it's just like this is like where the Ka-tet was broken in Song of Susanna. It is destroyed at this point.
Yeah,
and it's to the point where like, what the fuck are you gonna do now? And then you got Jake mourning, you got everybody mourning, but Roland's stern as can be because he just has to move forward, and it's that even splinters them even more so because they all can't stand each other.
Yeah,
and then like, but everyone's kind of like drawn with Roland's case that you get the flower, the rose, in our world that's tied to the tower because it's the embodiment of the tower and they keep it safe. You got that.
Did I read it wrong? Where at one point like they kind of don't like each other, but they're kind of like, well, we need to be together for the fucking kid. Roland and Susanna.
Yeah,
like,
a little bit.
Like there's like a little bit of it's like kind of a will they won't they type of thing, but it's not right. Like it's a shaky will they won't they.
Yeah, 100%. Their story going forward, you get everything fading away and falling out, and you're just like, what the fuck is going on? But I think the most heartbreaking part of the tale is towards the end. It's Roland and Susanna by themselves walking through the desert.
I think it was
where they're just kind of going through, and then they're walking through the freezing area. Susanna's having the temptation for warmth, and she just has to step off the beam to find warmth, and she's hungry and she's cold, and then like they get to the part where they see a house and they find out that the house is just a ridge over to the Dark Tower, so they're like right there.
Was it in which book was it in where they go see Stephen King?
Oh, that's this book too.
That's this book also.
Yeah.
Because they do a
That's
whole
early.
thing, like timeline of things that happened to him after. Is that in one of the books? I don't know. Is it this at the beginning of this book?
Because they come to save Stephen King because supposedly he died.
When he got hit.
So they had to go save him. Then he's part of part of their Ka-tet for a little bit, or part of their group.
Minute, yeah.
And then
because there's a whole thing where but wasn't there another part where they went and saw him before at his house?
Oh, was that in Song of Susanna? No, that was
like it's 6 or
no,
7.
it was 7.
I thought
Dark
it was
Tower.
6 because there's a whole.
Oh, that's right. Because Callahan was there
at the end of it, like his
because they all break out and they all have to like go. Yeah.
His afterward, there's a whole afterward of him doing a timeline of like Dark Tower, and then it talks about like, oh, well, I never get to finish it because I fucking died when I got hit by the car.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah, this story is all over the place, but
like I want to see all that in the fucking movie.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see everything. Like I said, do it as a fucking anime. Just get, you know what, you can get to do it, and I would be okay with it because I like their style. Get the fucking Avatar guys on it.
The Airbenders.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I know Mike Flanagan's doing it right now,
but like, but the part that I like, it's when they get to the house and they find out it's a trap, and then like. Roland's tricked. He's fooled by the whole thing, and then like they defeat the guy, they kill the guy, and then they have the artist downstairs, and then whatever he draws becomes reality, and then you have that scene where like they're on their way. They're like they'll be there. Like Roland sets up camp because in his mind he sees the tower at sunrise, so he wants to be there at sunrise, and so it's in the middle of the night, and then they ask the guy like the artist to like whatever he draws happens. So that's where Susanna goes, draw me, and then so he draws her with that, because she's being poisoned with the toxicness of the land, and so she does all those like gross cancer things on her face, and then he tells him to like erase it and make her whole again. And so he erases it, and she feels the sting, and then it goes away, and then like he then like tells her to draw the door, and then Susanna, without even thinking about it, she uses like what her intuition is to write these words on the ground, and then he puts the words on the door, and then when they open the door, that's where you see like the snow coming down, and the vision of like that she had of like seeing Eddie and Jake laughing in snow, and then this is her way to get to them.
Yeah.
And then like, but then you also have Mordred, who's like hiding in the woods trying to figure out like how to attack and kill them. But there's that scene where like Susanna is just begging Roland to just forget his whole like dream of going to the tower and just come with her. And it's heartbreaking, dude, because like it's all like this is the moment where like it shows him like, yeah, he loves them all, but it doesn't matter. Like he will cut ties with everybody to get to his that need to be there.
That's why that whole word, well, they won't they, is like he's like, yeah, they can, but he's
she kisses him. She kisses him in the mouth and tells him she loves him, and then she goes in the tower, and then you get Mordred coming in, and then they start fighting, and then Oi dies, and Oi not going with Susanna was heartbreaking too, because like you're like, fuck, dude, like, because like he didn't know what to do, whether he was gonna go, he's gonna stay, like you have but he stayed with Roland because somebody needed to be with Roland to keep his like heart in check. Yeah. And then you get Mordred coming over, who ends up like killing Oi, killing like everybody, and then they end up killing him. And then Mordred fucks with like Roland's head, saying like, do you think Susanna's alive? She's dead. The moment she went through that door, she was torn apart by the darkness, all this other stuff. And you're thinking like, yeah, dude, you don't know if that's real or not. You don't know if that vision's real. Like it's an illusion. Who knows what the fuck it is? And then you just went in through a door that you deemed right, but at the same time, the Red King is out there guiding everything. So who knows if that's real or not? You don't know if that's a thought that he projected out to her. And you get to the Red King. That I thought was very anticlimactic. Where he was like, he's trapped. He's in the tower, but he's trapped outside on the balcony, and he can't get back in.
Well, wasn't there a whole part with him, like, was it like the Stephen King clones?
The Stephen King.
I thought, wasn't there like people he had to talk to do riddles through, and were they did they look like Stephen King?
Oh yeah. There was like
like gestures or whatever.
Yeah,
that looked like Stephen King.
Yeah, and then you get the king throwing in grenades and everything.
Yeah,
and then you get to the rose, and then like they have the artist draw the rose, and then draw the eyes, and then blind the king to get to the tower, but like. That speech Roland gives in front of the tower, like it gives me chills every time I read it. It's fantastic. Where like he demands the door to be open under like, and he names everybody that's been in his journey, to Jake, who he calls his real son, to David the Hawk, to like all this other stuff, and he says like he demands the doors to be open, and it opens up, and like I remember like, even like my the last read I read to it still gets me because it's a very like.
It's like the powerful moment.
Yeah, and you're like fuck, dude. And then like him slowly crawling up the tower to seeing like every floor is like a moment of his life. So then now he's reliving his life again to get to the very top, just to get to the doors. And then like once the doors are pushed open, it's just him remembering everything and screaming like, dude, it's such a monumental just like tale of just like you're stuck in purgatory and you're dead and you've been dead and this is your hell and your greed and your obsession will always be your fucking destruction and you will go through this 1,000 times more because you'll never learn your lesson. And then he gets the Horn of Eld thinking this time I'll change it. But you're already in purgatory, bud. Like it's never gonna change. It's always the same story. It's always gonna be the same way. You're gonna kill everybody you love for your ambition and your pride and what you think it's right. But you forego all the moments of joy that is there given to you. That if you focus and you had the opportunity to just forego the tower, you would find your peace. You would find your heaven. You would find your area. What's the saying that they say? The passage down the road or down the clearing.
Oh yeah, passage down the clearing.
Yeah. So like, but it's one of those where it's like, but he's stuck. He's always going to be stuck, and it's just heartbreaking. And then most people think like, oh, this time like Roland will get it right, but there's no getting it right. He's stuck in hell. This is his hell. His worlds are dead. We've already met all these people who already been dead.
Yeah.
And these are just like shadows of everybody else, and like that's why the world's slowly dying away. But it's gonna be the point where it's like, regardless of whatever adventure he goes to, he's still gonna make it to that tower because he needs to be punished for his obsession. Like it's really good. And then like I believe that when they come back around, I don't think it's gonna be Jake. I don't think it's gonna be Susanna. I don't think it's gonna be Eddie Dean. I think it's gonna be a new set of other souls that he's gonna have to bring into himself to be able to like bring in these other like totems, because he's gonna have to draw in 3 more.
So you think if he did another round of,
it'll be another 3 damn souls that he'll just bring with him and then just take along with him.
Okay.
Do you think it's gonna be him?
Do you think he's? So you think? Okay. So in theory, going off your theory, you think he's done this before, but you think every time he goes around, it's a different Ka-tet.
100%. And he forgets them. Right?
You don't think there's ever been any double, like a double up?
No, I don't think so. I think this is just this one tale of this doomed voyage.
So you think this is just one part of the voyage that he said multiple times, and this is the one that he decided to tell?
Yeah. You don't see it that way? You think like it's always Jake?
I thought it would be just like, you do that again over. You do that over until you get it right.
What's the right outcome then? He got to the tower, so like,
but it's not the right outcome.
The outcome is not going to the tower. The outcome for his peace is to be with his Ka-tet or stay in Kala and just be happy and live there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's you refuse love, you refuse family, you refuse fortune, you refuse everything.
So what do you think would happen you don't think anything would come after him if he didn't go after the tower? No. You think he'd just die
if he lays his guns down, he'll be happy, but he won't. Yeah, like it sucks because like it's one of those where it's like I want him to go back to the tower and like defeat it in some like grand gesture, like have his way out with the king, the Crimson King, but at the same time, like what's gonna be the outcome? Him going through the tower again, because the tower is telling him like this is not what's important. You reaching me wasn't what was. You don't come to me with an open heart or whatever. You come to me demanding, and fuck you. Back to the beginning, bitch. Because that's what happens every time.
Yeah.
It's just God flicking him back in time, back to where he fucked up, because that's the moment where he could make a change up until he gets to the tower. He could have stopped. He could have changed, and he could have lived in Tull and been happy. He could have lived anywhere throughout that entire journey, midworld, wherever, different dimensions where he was jumping from like time through the doors. Yeah. He could have stayed anywhere and been happy, but he chose to feed his obsession, and like because that he gets fucking damned again for another role.
Yeah, no, I got it.
And since he forgets every time, it's one of those where it's like, yeah, dude, like we could do this forever because Ka's gonna fucking just Ka's a wheel, dude. He doesn't give a fuck. He will turn you right back around. But I love it. I love it. I love it so much.
Have you gotten to read The Black House or The Talisman yet?
No, I haven't read those 2 yet.
You know they're mid-world stories, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. About Eyes of the Dragon?
No. Did I? I think I bought it. I don't think I read it.
Eyes of the Dragon is one of the first Stephen King stories. You know what that is, right?
No.
It's full-on fantasy. It's not a horror story. It's a full-on fantasy story. It's one of the first Stephen King, actually, probably... I'm trying to think if I think I read that before I read The Shining.
Okay.
Because I heard the name Stephen King from my aunt, and so I went and I was like, oh, I'm going to look for books.
Yeah.
And that's what they had. But I think I read Eyes of the Dragon in the 7th grade. At school, one of the teachers had Stephen King books.
Okay.
And that's where I also read Fear Street for the first time as well.
Oh, nice.
Like, I was...
Fear Street's who wrote those other books.
Yeah.
Or was it?
R.L. Stine.
R.L. Stine, yeah.
But yeah, so he Eyes of the Dragon was one of the first that I read.
Yeah.
And it's very much a fantasy story, but Randall Flagg is in it.
Yeah. I read it. Have you read Insomnia?
No.
Randall Flagg's in that. Fantastic story. Crazy story. It starts
And
off with the
then-
flu, which is also referenced in yeah. Or it's I think it's Wizard and Glass they reference
Well, everything goes back
Insomnia.
to Ka.
yeah.
Ka's
like-
the wheel.
But yeah, Randall Flagg's like the main villain in that story.
So it's it's so weird because it's like, yeah, Randall Flagg is the villain in this, but he's a wizard in this.
Yeah, and then he dies in the first book after he meets him, but then he's still alive.
Yeah,
Because he goes back in time. Like,
and then but like the king's name is Roland.
The king.
The king in Eyes of the Dragon.
Oh,
His
is
name
it?
Roland?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So there's a whole. There's a whole bunch of
So
stuff.
do you think that Roland is a version of Roland where he didn't chase the tower?
I don't know. Like that's the thing. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe, it's been. God, at least 25.
I know Stephen King wrote a book. I read. It's a short story about someone dying. It was based on like the people that. It was a story in the 1930s, 1920s, where it was a warehouse and they had workers that like lived that did this shop or whatever, and there was a fire, but like the managers of the store or the owners of the store didn't want these workers to like leave and early or whatever, so they locked the doors.
The night shift?
No, and then so these workers ended up dying in the building, and then their ghost like haunts, and then it's like the main guy is dead, and that he's haunted by his decisions about where he wants to be. But like all of it is the same story like the Dark Tower, but just simplified, where it doesn't matter. He gets to the very end of his life, and then death is there, and he tells him to choose a door, and it doesn't matter what door he chooses because he thinks he'll get it right again, but he gets to relive everything all over again. So he gets to relive the tragedy all over again, which is the same thing as the Dark Tower. But Roland's dead. Roland's been dead. This is just his perpetual hell.
Yeah.
It's just like what
So
this is what I think.
So is
this is
that
what I think would
So is that
what
the
dreams may come.
Okay, so hold on. So is that like the White Bear episode of Black Mirror?
I've never seen it.
You ever saw the White Bear?
No. So, but it's what I think would like be like
I think it's called White Bear.
What dreams may come. Where it's like where like the wife is like sad and depressed and she's in hell, but she can't like make herself
But
go because she like the way that purgatory world works is like if you pull yourself out you could go to heaven, but no one's stopping you but your own guilt and your own shame. It's just it makes me appreciate like the little things that I see that make me happy because I don't want to be like Roland. Like I don't want any of that desire to forget everything else that's around me that could bring you joy. Because like you see them all fight with Roland at one point. Like we've gone too far. This is way too much.
But yeah, dude, it took me fucking 20-something years to fucking get to all these books, and I finally did.
Yeah, like to me, it's like I love every character, except for Calvin Tower. I think he's kind of a prick, but
he's supposed to be.
Yeah, but aside from that, I reread it because it brings me an insight of like what I need to focus in my life, but also like it's one of those where it's like I feel these characters are like family, and it's one of those where it's like I like to revisit them. As much as I hate getting to the point where everyone's dying, I still reread it because you can't have like the joys without the sorrows, and so like seeing their loss also kind of like brings me to the point where it's like accepting of like everything comes to an end. Everything shouldn't have come to an end like that, but everything comes to an end, and I don't know. I enjoy these books. It's a fucking masterpiece. I always tell people to read it.
We always ask a question. I'm joking.
Corey Feldman as Roland.
As Roland.
Just moonwalking his way through Midtown.
Moonwalking, just blink, 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 just picking people off.
But yeah, dude. But even like everything about it, it's fantastic. Like, how they just meld every like legend and story and pop culture.
Yeah, I mean, it's Wizard of Oz. It's fucking King Arthur. It's Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's like I said, it's fucking
the Doombots. It's fucking everything.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I'm saying. It's just this big mash Just big Richard Dreyfuss
vampires, werewolves, rat people. It's fucking random.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful story. Wizard and Glass, still my favorite book out of all of them. I just love it. I just love it. It's such a great story. It just brings you into their world more solidly because you get like a sense of the background.